now there are a lot of eyes on FEMA as it responds to Helene and prepares for what devastation Milton will leave behind. I want to bring in Craig Fugate, the former administrator for FEMA. Before that, he served as director of the Florida Emergency Management Division. Craig, I'm so glad you're with us tonight because unfortunately, more and more people are confused about who FEMA is, what they do. Help us understand, what is the first thing FEMA is going to do once the storm passes?
Work with the governor. I think that's the thing people keep confusing, that FEMA is not the initial response. It's the governor, the state, local officials. FEMA has deployed 14 of their urban search and rescue teams that will be going out as the state directs them. FEMA has personnel in the Emergency Operations Center. They've been bringing in supplies and they're coordinating the federal agencies. But the initial response is really the responders for FEMA supporting that. And then as they start getting a sense of how bad and where the heavy hit areas, I would imagine the governor's going to be asking for more assistance from FEMA, from the president, and FEMA's going to be working to administer that. But I think it's really important people understand that FEMA is not that initial response. FEMA supports the governor, and some of the teams, such as urban search and rescue teams, are part of that, but they're really designed to work as part of the state team.
We saw FEMA and the Biden administration be very public with their warnings for people who live in the storm's path. What did you think of how they handled that part of the crisis? Because it's a very difficult balance of getting people prepared, getting them out of the storm's eye, but not getting people overly panicked if it's not necessary and risk losing their trust.
Yeah, sometimes I think we worry too much about panicking people, just getting them to move to higher ground and keep them alive. And that was the message. And it was the message you had from mayors to the governor to the White House. And that's how it's supposed to work. It isn't that we're all competing. It's that we work as a team. And so you heard the same message from the mayor from St. Pete, Hillsborough County, Tampa, to Governor DeSantis, to the president. It's all about keeping people safe, giving them good information so they can make informed decisions. And now as we're in the storm, it's really important that people stay home, stay off the roads. This is still a dangerous storm moving through the area. And then as conditions begin to improve, beginning on the West Coast, those response agencies that have had to go to their safe areas are going to start responding and getting out and checking on people and seeing what the damages look like.
Donald Trump has spread all kinds of lies in the last couple of weeks, but specifically about FEMA and its response. For fact's sake, President Biden, unlike what Donald Trump claims, did not take FEMA relief money and spend it on migrants. But Donald Trump actually did when he was in office. Can you help us understand, because FEMA has a hard enough job already, I have to imagine that these lies make it even harder.
Well, from the standpoint of the funding, Congress is pretty strict on what they allocate money for and what you can spend it for. So FEMA just can't move money around. And certainly they can't use money out of the disaster relief fund, which funds disasters, and use it for something else. And Congress watches that very closely. I remember when I was FEMA administrator, the Appropriations Committee staff were literally looking every time we were spending money in disasters to make sure where it was going, what it was going towards, and that we weren't not using money that we weren't authorized to use. And again, this is to a lot of people, I think they're speaking to an audience. When you're talking about the people in these areas that have been impacted by the disasters, all they want to know is help's coming. A lot of the stuff we're talking about, I think you're talking to an outside audience, because think about how many people right now are losing power in Florida and won't even hear this message. Same thing as we saw with Helene up into the mountain areas. Much of this conversation, they didn't hear it. They were down to, if they got a radio, they maybe got it on the radio, but they were basically down to almost no communications. So I think a lot of this noise is directed outside of the disaster. It's for a different audience. And we got to be careful that we don't confuse the people that we're trying to help or cause them to think that there's not help coming because of that noise.
Especially because the only audience that truly matters are those people who need help. Craig, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
When we return, we will have an